Welcome to Expat Radio. I'm Bill Anderson and I'm coming live from the Costa del Sol. And I have to say, it's a beautiful, sunny, and warm day here today. I think spring is finally making its way over to the Costa del Sol. We've had a kind of cold spell. I'm absolutely delighted today to welcome my guest, Clive Marks. Clive, welcome.
Good afternoon, Bill. Thank you.
Right, Clive, we're going to be tackling a kind of a delicate subject today, but you've set up this campaign really for men to get the prostate checked, and we're going to come on talk about that and talk about your own experiences. But first of all, so as people know who they're listening to, where are you from originally, Clive?
Well, originally I was born in Hitchin, Hertfordshire, and I spent probably up till 10 or 9 actually in the UK. And then my father, we emigrated to the US, and we lived in
Oh,
the US for 4 years in North and South Carolina, which was at the days when they were just having segregation. And to be honest with you, it was a totally different experience for me because I had my eyes wide open, or open, shall I say, when I got there, because the situation was just when they were starting to integrate schools between blacks and whites, and you either were put into a black area or whites. It was just really a strange experience for me. But
right.
anyway, some great, I had some great other great experiences. My dad took us to a lot of fantastic places in the US. Then we came back to the Midlands because he was working for a company in the Midlands, and that was kind of from a base from about 15 to 18, and then from 18 to 26, I traveled around Europe. I was working for holiday companies. Well, one of the first jobs I had was we went around all of France actually, and Spain, putting up campsites.
Right.
Uh, and then we were then based. They gave us a job in the summer. I ended up in Antibes, running a hire shop. So I hired everything out, and one of my jobs was to repair the bikes. And sometimes in the evenings, I used to let the tyres down. So the next day, my boss used to come around to me and say, "What you got to do?" To go, "Oh, I've got a few punches to fix, Pat. I'll be busy with that for a few hours."
Did he catch up with that? That was what's happening, Clive.
Well, she did actually. She did catch up because she sort of one day said, "How come we're getting so many punches?" And so I had to be. I fronted up to say, "Look, Pat, to be honest with you, I said a couple of days I do let the tyres down because just to sort of so I can sit in the sun and pump them up and do nothing." But that was that, and that sort of that was it took me. Well, I went with that company all over France, all over Brittany, all down as far Biarritz, down to Santa, down to all the way down the coast, putting up sites, and then all across the south of France, Antibes, Biot, which was, and then down Cap d'Agde. And I got my love of food when I was in France because at the time you used to go into a restaurant and they used to have, I can't remember, it used to be maybe 100 or 50 franc menu, 100 franc menu. And I didn't know what was in any of the food was on it because
Right.
obviously it was in French. So I just go, that one, please. I'll have the 50 franc menu. And then all the food came out. And I was like, wow, what is this? And I got my love of seafood from there because I was in this restaurant one day and they brought this huge tray of ice with all these different shellfish on. I said, I'll have one of them, please.
Uh,
So, that was a great experience, and I enjoyed that. And like I say, then I went off to Greece, and I worked for a holiday company for a while. But then I started working for a guy. We went to Crete. I started working for a local guy called Manolis, and he had a water sports centre. So I worked in the water sports centre, and then well, eventually he bought bars. I ended up managing and running his bars.
right.
Um, and then I got to 25 and thought I better go and do a serious job. I don't know why. I don't know why I thought that, but I remember a conversation with a guy. He said to me, "Have you got credit cards?" I went, "No." He said, "Have you got a mortgage?" I said, "No." He said, "You got a girlfriend?" I said, "Not at the moment, but probably next week." Um, and he said, "You've got a great life." I said, "Yeah, I have." And then 12 months after that, I was back in England. I had a house, I had a girlfriend, and everything. And I kind of thought, I didn't really need to do that. But anyway,
Uh,
it led me to where I was, and then I stayed in England. I got involved in sales. I've been in sales for since I was 25. I'm now 61. Um,
right.
doing various. Well, basically, I've sold everything from capital equipment to. I worked for Scott, the paper company, so that was on the industrial side, selling products into businesses,
Right.
site safety products, and then that's when I started. I had an export role with them, so I covered selling for them all through Europe. Then I got a job with a German company, and I looked up, and this was for fluorescent product, not reflective products that goes on police cars and traffic signs and uniforms. And my
Right.
responsibilities. Well, a friend of mine phoned me up, and he said, "What are you doing?" I said, "Oh, no, I've just sold a business. I had a business. I moved to Ireland, got married, and my wife was Irish, and I moved to Ireland, had a business for 12 months, sold it." I said, "I'm doing nothing at the moment." He said, "How do you fancy looking after South Africa, the Middle East, and Turkey?" I went, "Yeah, okay, I'll do that."
Right.
So I did that, and then that went on for a while, and then actually that was we then decided I didn't need to be based in Ireland because we were living in Ireland. I could be based anywhere because my role was outside of where I lived, so I
Right.
travelled to all these countries pretty much every month. Um, so we moved. That's when we first made the first move to Spain.
Right. But you traveled all over Europe and spent a lot of time in different parts of Europe. Why
Yeah.
did you decide Spain finally, and why this part of Spain?
Well, my wife's sister had a place here, and
Right.
I think it was also the close proximity to Ireland because obviously my wife was very close to her mother and that family, so it was not to go too far, but we also
Right.
knew people down here, so we came down here, and that was the reason really to be in not too far away from home, but also not be in the rain.
Yeah, because where we are here in Mijas, Clive, we're only sort of 20 minutes into Malaga Airport,
Yeah.
and it's what, about a 3 hour flight from Malaga to anywhere in the UK, basically, isn't it?
Yeah. Well, that was the thing. It was just, my wife was very. I had a daughter that had moved to the UK. My mother-in-law was still alive then, so she wanted to be able to go back. And obviously, the links with Ireland were quite strong, so she wanted to keep that with her family.
You're right.
So that's one of the reasons we moved down here. And then we've kind of been here since then, and
So how long ago was that, Clive?
well, we're 12 years here now. 12
Okay.
years 12 years, or 12 years, yeah, 12 years ago
Yeah.
now.
So you got in well before Brexit hit the starting blocks.
Yes, yes. That's another subject. I won't go on to that because
No,
that
I don't think we
infuriates
should.
me.
I think the really hard bit about Brexit was that those of us that were living in Europe didn't actually get a say in what was going to happen with it, and uh,
Yeah.
basically, we had to pay some of the costs of Brexit down here without having a say in it. Yeah.
I was still I mean, I was commuting backwards and forwards to the UK. Then I worked for a company in England, so I used to jump on a plane those Mondays, and I was in the UK working sort of 4 or 5 days a week. So I'm still on the electoral roll. So I did have the opportunity to vote, but
Right.
so yeah, but it wasn't the result I particularly wanted. But
No.
that's another story.
Well, it's history as well, isn't it? We've got
Yeah,
what
it is
we've
history.
got,
There's nothing to do. We've got to get on with it.
and we're still trying to get some things sorted out down here.
Yeah,
Several
it's
years on.
well,
Um,
it's just I don't think anybody really realised how difficult it was going to untangle and the effect it had on business and not only business but the whole shoot. There's so many parts of it that people weren't aware, and people voted on small parts of the whole Brexit policy. And some of
yeah,
my friends, the things they voted on were so local. It was not shocking, but that's their
yeah.
choice. They were making a call on what they believed, but it. It wasn't the big picture.
No, and I think, well, like with any political campaign, it was a political campaign.
Yeah.
Um, the potential benefits were mixed in with a lot of lies about the
Yeah.
costs, and
Oh yeah.
yeah,
Oh yeah.
it was a complicated one. Anyway, it is
Yeah.
what it is. And so 12 years ago, you moved down here, the south coast, the Costa del Sol.
Really.
Has it been a good experience for you being here, Clive?
Yeah. I mean, I look back and, for me to open the window and look out and see a blue sky after living in Ireland, that the reason we moved was, on a Friday afternoon, it'd start raining in Ireland and it'd still be raining on Monday.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
if
yeah.
you went out with the kids, you went out to go in,
Uh-huh.
and I said, my wife and I said, look, if we're going to do this, we've got to do it now before the kids get to, because my kids were at the time 3, 7, and 9.
Right.
And like my eldest daughter, she'd moved to England, so she wasn't involved in it. So I said, before these kids get too old, we need to do this. So that's what we did. And I opened the window, and it's like 20 euros in my pocket when the sun's out at the start of the
Yeah.
day, and I just feel better. And it is a different light. Yes, it's more social, but there are so many things to do around here that you're in striking decent. Go Sierra Nevada, go skiing down to Tarifa, which is beautiful. Go to the lakes. I
Sure.
mean, you've got beautiful cities like Granada and Sevilla. It's just, yeah. Then you're 4 hours from Portugal, which is,
Sure. Yeah.
it's. I couldn't. I mean, I can't ever see myself going back to UK. I don't really identify as being British anymore. I don't know what I class myself. Bit of a mongrel, I think. Bit of a wanderer.
A citizen of the world.
Citizen of the world. I like
Yeah.
that, Bill. I'm going to
Yeah.
take that. I'm going to take that on. Thank you.
Yeah, it's a very different. It sounds very, I think, superficial when we say the weather, the great weather.
Yeah,
It sounds superficial, but actually, it's the weather in general, the milder winters,
yeah,
the beautiful long summers that actually
yeah,
give us the opportunity to do lots of things in a way that you were saying, in the UK, is bucking down with rain for weeks on end sometimes, and you don't get out, and your life is indoors,
well,
and it,
yeah,
it just
exactly.
changes that whole perspective, doesn't it?
It just gives you more choices. I mean, when it's raining, what the choices are. You stay in or you go out to go in.
Yeah,
When here, I mean, when my kids were younger, I mean, we could go and sit down in the Chiringuito. They'd play in the sand for hours,
yeah.
and we'd sit there and have a €1 beer and a couple of tapas. And I just used to sit there and think, I'm glad I moved here.
This is the life. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
But Clive, to move on to the topic I want to talk to you about
yeah,
today, which is this whole thing about prostate cancer,
yeah,
and you are going to share your experiences with us because you've been through this whole process.
yeah.
But what is it an I don't know, underreported, under publicized problem that we have?
I don't think it's under publicised because the information is there, and there are a lot of facts and figures that we should, as men, be aware. But I don't think we are made aware of it, and I think also the factor is that we are men, and we don't. We're supposed to be. I don't know what we call. We're not supposed to be ill. We're supposed to be strong. We're supposed to be tough. We're supposed to be all this sort of stuff, and
Right.
we don't really think about health unless you're ill. We
Yes.
don't go and
Yeah.
get checked for anything. And I think, like I've said to you before, women actually get checked for mammograms and cervical smears. We actually don't do anything. And I think there's something in the UK where they send out something to check whether you've got stomach cancer. And I'm not too sure over a certain age. I've never had that.
Right.
But here, no, I don't. I mean, I don't think anybody really thinks about prostate. Since I've been talking about it, the amount of people that have said, "Oh, I didn't realise I got to do that. I never even thought about that." And
Sure.
people have rang me up and emailed me and WhatsApped me, and what do you think about this? This is happening, and I just say, well, just go and have a test. There's a big myth about the test as well. It's just a blood test,
Right.
and that's
Yeah.
it.
Yeah.
I mean, I've got to tell you a funny story. My son
Uh,
had been telling my brother-in-law in Ireland, who's 70, you've got to go and get a test. It's just a blood test. It's just a blood test. But I don't know what happened. The doctor we went to in Ireland still did it the old-fashioned way.
oh dear.
Oh, so he came out a bit shocked, a bit like the first time I went, because the first time I went about, for I don't know how many it was, years ago, but years and years ago, prior to it would have been over 10 years ago. My wife set it up, and I went down to the doctors, and I was in Ireland, and I said, "It's just Dr. Crosby. No, he's not here. You'll have to see the locum." Well, this big Irish farmer looking guy came out and called me into the room. There was me, took on my jacket, rolled up my sleeve, sitting there, and then he reached behind him for these latex gloves. He said, "Oh God, these don't fit me. I'll have to get some larger ones." And then he
Uh-huh.
said, "Go and stand over there and drop your trousers." And that's when the penny dropped. And
Right.
I and I walked out, and my wife was sitting in the reception laughing because she knew. And I went, "You knew about this, didn't you?" She said, "Yeah, yeah, I did." I said, "Well, thanks very much." But anyway,
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
just a blood test now, which is bang. I mean, it's easy. It's and you can get it done, and get your results back in less than a week now. So and that's one of the things I'm trying to, which we'll come on to,
Yeah.
um, drive that.
Yeah, but maybe this show should be as directed towards the female listeners as the male listeners, because
Absolutely.
I'm terrible about going to the doctors. I've been here 20 years and
Now,
I've never been to the doctors, and you know. If I have to do something or take something or whatever, it's always because my wife, and I'm going to say this very
hang on.
lovingly, nags at me and says, you need to
Correct.
take this, you need to take that. And I go, yeah, 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 yeah. And then sometimes she'll say, have you taken this, whether it's a vitamin or
Yeah.
whatever, have you taken it? And then she gets to the point and saying, right, I'm not going to talk to you about it anymore. It's up to you now. You're a big, man,
Yeah.
sometimes for us men, what is it that
I don't know.
we need to have our arm put up behind our back, or we need to be
Yeah.
nagged at in order to address health things?
Well, I just think we have this thing of we're supposed to be invincible, or I don't know whether it's that just old fashioned with a provider with a hunter gatherer sort of scenario of our psyche, but
Right,
I'll agree with you. I wouldn't have known about having prostate cancer if it hadn't been to my wife
right.
giving me a voucher um, to go. I was going to have blood tests because I'd had COVID and a bad chest. And I was going backwards and forwards to the doctors, and she said, "Why don't you have your bloods? And by the way, here's a voucher from Positively Blue. Have that done."
Yeah,
And I wouldn't have gone. I wouldn't even asked about it. I would have never even known I'd got cancer. Never.
right,
And
right.
then
So
could have gone anywhere.
you had no symptoms at all, Clive?
No, no. I mean, I was tired, but I was putting that down to COVID.
Right,
Okay, I was getting up to go to the bathroom, which is one of the symptoms in the night. But I was putting that down to age, because the prostate does get enlarged as you get older, and that doesn't necessarily mean you got cancer. It's just those things happen,
sure.
and you can take medicine and tablets to reduce that, and that's not the issue. So I didn't really think anything. I thought, normally I've got to get up in the middle of the night to go to the loo. I just thought that was normal.
Right,
And then obviously you get in the system. I went and had the blood test. I went back the results, and the doctor said, "Oh, your PSA is high. It's 14 where it should be 4 or
right.
below 4. Um, you need to go and see a urologist." I ignored it like a man. 2 weeks later, I had to go back for a checkup. She'd given me stuff for my chest, and she said, "Have you been?" I said, "No." And
Yeah.
she said, "Well, you need to go," and that's how it started.
Right. Yeah, so the PSA is the prostate specific antigen, so that they're actually
Yeah,
measuring particular antigens in the blood and the levels in the
yeah,
blood.
yeah,
And what you're saying is it should be below 4. I've
yeah,
actually said, I've read somewhere that in some areas now that they're saying below 2.9, um,
yeah.
but yours was up at 14.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it does having a high level doesn't necessarily mean you've got cancer. It just is it's just the first warning sign that something's not right, and you've got to go
Right,
and check it out. I mean, it could be, I've spoken to other people that've got high prostate and it's being managed and it's not cancer, you
right,
know.
okay,
Um, so but it's just for us, it flags up in men, look, there's something not right, you need to go and do something about it.
right.
You know?
Yeah, so it isn't really a specific diagnostic tool. It's just an indicator. Yeah,
It's an indicator because then if it is high, then you take it on. Then you go to the urologist, and the first thing they'll do is send you for an MRI,
right,
uh, which I'd never had one before, and that was an experience. I
right,
mean, I thought it was going to be a quick X-ray situation. You're sitting in this machine for 20 minutes, and you can't move. It's making all these funny noises, and it's
right.
quite. it comes up to here, force, not if you're a little bit claustrophobic, it can get a little bit uncomfortable. But I don't know whether I was in a small old machine, but I think there are some big ones now. I spoke to friends, there's TV screens and everything in it.
Right.
But the one
Okay.
I was in was quite, it came up to here, and I did feel a little bit claustrophobic, and I was glad to get out there after like 25 minutes.
Right.
And then you go with the results back to there, and that's when they say, yes, there's something not right here. And then the next stage is you have to go for a biopsy. Uh, and then you get a biopsy, and then they sit you down and tell you, yeah, you've
Yeah.
got you've got cancer.
And can I just ask, Clive, if this was done through private healthcare or if this was done through the national health system here in Spain?
No, no. We when we first came down, we took out private health because obviously I had young kids, and
Right.
at the time I was working in the UK, so I wasn't in the system. My wife was obviously a housewife looking after the children, so you know we took private health out because we could have carried on, I think, with the public system, but we could afford to do it at the time, and
Right.
I still do it. So no, it was all through the private scenario, and
Yeah.
but I think I've spoken to friends that are going through the public system, and it's the same procedure. It might be just a little bit slower by a month or two, and that's it. You
Yeah,
know,
I think I mean I couldn't criticize the
no,
Spanish healthcare
not
system,
at all.
other than, as you say, I think the problem that's being experienced in a lot of countries at the moment are waiting times
Yeah,
within the public healthcare system. There've been some difficulties here as well,
yeah,
but once you're into the system. It is a very good, very comprehensive
true.
system. Yeah.
I've spoken to many. I mean, we have, you know, my wife had a business down here, and so we are registered now in the public system.
Right.
Um, and the experience that I've had when I've had to go to it
Right.
have been 100%. And I can't fault it. And we did, initially use things when we came down here, but with the children, and I mean the cost of Soho Hospital was, I can't fault it with the experiences I've had.
No, 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 no. How's your Spanish, Clive?
Un poquito.
Un poquito. Ha 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 ha. Ha.
My kids are all fluent. I do
Yeah,
remember when we first came here, we put them into Spanish schools in
yeah,
Alveria. They went to Platero and Pinalivo, and I remember standing at the gate with Debbie, my wife, and saying, "What have we done? We brought them over here. We put them in school. They don't speak the language." And I actually walked away thinking that's really cruel. But within 6 months or less than that, they were all fluent. It was,
yeah.
and they're still fluent. And my eldest son went when he was 16, went to Denmark to finish his schooling, and he now speaks English, Danish, and Spanish.
Right.
So
Yeah,
it's
I think, for people who are part of the healthcare system, the national healthcare system here,
yeah,
I do think sometimes that the lack of language is one of the things that puts them off,
yeah,
you know, going to the GP. GPs might speak a bit of English,
yeah.
but they're not obliged to be able to speak
No,
English fluently. And why should they be?
no,
Um,
absolutely. I mean, we live in Spain. I mean, I understand a lot of Spanish. And I know when my children don't want me to understand something, they switch into Spanish,
right.
and I do pick up the old one and say, hey, "Look, I know what you're talking about."
Yeah,
So
yeah,
it's the thing I've got now is if I do speak Spanish to somebody and they speak Spanish back to me, then they automatically think that I can speak Spanish, and
right.
then all
Yeah.
of a sudden they start a conversation. I'm like, whoa, whoa, whoa,
Slow down.
no, but yeah, I mean, you're right. If you speak the language, it just drops a hell of a lot of barriers. I think it
Yeah,
makes it. I think any country it's the same. When I was in France and in Greece and everything, even if you tried, it makes a huge difference to people that
yeah,
you actually could be bothered, to do it. I mean, and I've seen some experience in France when I was in a supermarket on one of the campsites I worked on, and they all spoke fluent,
yeah,
fluent English. And a
sure.
guy came in, didn't even try. Give me a pint of milk, give me a loaf of bread, and they were like,
Oh,
"Oh,
yeah, yeah, yeah. Well,
Oh,
I worked in the south of Germany when I was a student, and
yeah,
the same thing used to happen that, tourists, British tourists would come in and just order things directly in English, and it's like, well, um, uh, they didn't know what languages I spoke, but it was just an assumption. But
yeah.
it can be I think people can survive very well down here without speaking Spanish. That's the
Oh, yeah.
problem. It's the problem
Yes.
until they have to go to the doctors, or until,
Oh,
I don't
no,
know,
no.
they get their car stolen, they've got to go and
Yeah.
report it to the
Please.
Guardia
Yeah.
Civil, the police. That's when they start to panic, isn't it? And maybe why they don't visit their doctors as frequently as they
Yeah.
possibly should.
I mean, I've percentage-wise, I think most of the people that if I apologise for the small Spanish I speak, and I think most people, if you it's the approach you have to people, if you come in blazing with English and don't even attempt to do things, then you're going to get some Spanish people that just go, you should speak Spanish, or yeah. But I always think that if you try, and then at least they appreciate that you've made an effort,
Yeah,
and then between maybe your pidgin Spanish and their
yeah.
level of English, you get through things, and I think that, and you also learn that way.
Sure. Um, Clive, we're going to take a short break, and when we come back, I want you to talk us through, the reality of prostate cancer, the treatment,
Yep.
and where you are now with everything. So let's take a short break, and we'll catch up
Okay.
on that when we come back. Welcome back. I'm Bill Anderson. We're coming live here from the Costa del Sol with my guest today, Clive Marks. Clive, welcome back.
Thank you.
And we are raising this issue of prostate cancer in men, and Clive's own experiences with this. Clive, I've read, and I think in the conversation we've had before, you said that 1 in 9 men
Yeah.
are likely to experience prostate cancer. That
Yeah, I
sounds
think
pretty high, doesn't
yeah,
it?
well, it is I think it's 1 in 8, 1 in 9,
Yeah,
and it's the second biggest killer in men after lung cancer.
really. Wow.
Yeah, and it's silent, and you
Yeah,
don't, I mean, I think once that you do start to experience something, it's
it's
probably gone.
it's
And
late.
if you
Yeah,
catch it early, you have various options on how to treat it. But
yeah.
if it goes too far, I think there's only one operation or one solution, which is an operation to remove it.
Right.
So
Yeah.
early on, you have the choice. I had the choice of either radiotherapy or an operation. And personally, I didn't want an operation,
Right.
and I had to have it. I
Uh,
don't really.
so you got your free voucher. Your wife
Yeah,
pestered you to go in and use it. You
correct. God
you
bless her.
your PSA came back high. Then you went through all the tests, and it was determined that there were cancerous cells in
Yeah.
the prostate. How did you feel, Clive, when you got that diagnosis?
Well, prior to going back to the urologist, I had blood tests done. So I got the blood test, and like you do now, you Google everything. So I knew that white blood cells meant something. So I Googled what it meant, and obviously, if they're high, which they were on my blood test, it's flagged up either a sign of cancer or an infection. So putting two and two together, when I went back to the meeting with him, I kind of had in my mind that I was going to be told that I had cancer.
Right.
So I was a little bit prepared. And obviously, when you are told, I kind of was prepared, but it still rocks you. But what rocked me more was that as a standard procedure, they then check whether it's spread anyone else, which makes sense, but it wasn't something I was prepared for.
Right.
I think if I had known, I would have been. I mean, that rocked me more than anything, because it was like, what do you mean if it's gone anywhere else?
Uh-huh.
So he said, "Oh no, we need to now do an organ scan, which is basically they inject you with some sort of chemical, and it feels like you've got hot water running through you, and it's
Uh-huh.
just a quick X-ray, and then obviously a bone scan, which is another. It's just like an X-ray. It's not like the MRI. It's over in minutes.
Right.
So that puts another couple of weeks into the process, and then you have to go back to him. He says yes, everything's all right. And then from there, you have to make an appointment then to see an oncologist, because they're going to be the people that will discuss or determine, because I had picked radiotherapy. And said,
Right.
I mean, The operation, I don't know. There's side effects with anything, but I didn't like the sound of the side effects. Um, I think
from the
it's a different
surgery.
experience. Yeah, from sometimes when some people operation, everything's 100%, and other people there's all sorts of issues that they have. So I
Right,
thought, well, if I don't have to have an operation, I read the side effects that were radiotherapy, which were not long term and manageable. So I decided radiotherapy, and then I met the oncologist, and then she determines how many sessions you have.
right,
So you then, I was told I had to have 28 sessions, and it's Monday to Friday for every day at the same time, um, and you go up to the hospital. But prior to that, they actually set you up with an X-ray, so you have to go and be catheterized, and every time you go, you have to go to the bathroom, drink 2 glasses of water, because that is the image they've got. So it makes sure that they're going to hit the same places every time, and they
right,
tattoo you. I've got 3 tattoos, one below my navel and two, and one on either hip, because that's where the actual machine,
right,
Betty, as I called her, Betty's going to stop and blast me.
right.
And so basically, and that's a bit daunting the first time you go, because you've got no idea what's going to happen. And that's one of the reasons I started to talk about it all through my treatment. I was on Facebook sharing this is what happens next, purely because
Sure.
just so somebody gets an idea of what you have to go through, and it's not, perhaps it won't be so daunting for them.
Right.
Um, because you go, they tell you strip to the waist, you put a gown on, you walk down this lovely flowery corridor, and then there's this huge big machine. When these people standing in this room, and you're like, well, what happens now? And you have to take off your gown and walk across the floor with all these nurses, and that's at first a bit daunting, because you're like, I'm not used to walking around with no trousers on in front of other people.
No, really?
No, 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 it's not something I do very often, Bill.
No.
There are rumours, but I don't, honestly.
Yeah. But
So then they lay you on the
did
table,
they
and
not give you a fig leaf or something, you know?
well, no, well, they lay you on the table, and they've got a bit of kitchen roll, and they tear off a bit of kitchen roll and put it delicately across your manhood. Um, and then they fiddle about the machine to get all in position, so the machine does the right things, and then it just goes around you and stops. Usually, it was 2 times it stopped in each position, anywhere between 10 and 30 seconds,
Right.
and then they come in,
Yeah.
and you get up, and you do feel a little bit. When you get off, you feel a little bit, shaky for a bit. But the first it's probably 20. I didn't really experience anything, but the last week or so, it does come to affect you. It's very painful to go to the bathroom, and you're very tired. I continued through work, because I made my mind up that I wasn't going to go home and go to bed. I'll go to bed at the normal time,
Right.
and just carry on working, because I just didn't want to just end up. I didn't want it to feel like it was beating me. So I just thought, I'm going to
Right.
go to work, and I'm going to have this done and be normal, and just get through it. You know.
Yeah, I wanted to ask you that, Clive. You know, how you managed your day to day during the treatment. You know, and what impact that had on you.
Yeah.
But was that the right decision for you to make? Just to try to bash on and keep
Yeah.
things as normal as possible.
For me, yes. Yeah. I don't want to lie. I just felt it was defeatist for myself to actually give into it.
Uh,
I didn't want to come home and crash in bed, and yeah, I did go to bed earlier, definitely, and I was tired, and that was probably, but then there was some uncomfortableness in going to the bathroom. um, yeah,
yeah.
I just didn't want to give into it. I just wanted to keep a positive attitude. That this was just a process, and at the end of it, I was going to be all right, and I just got to get through it. And it was only a snapshot in my life. It's only 5 weeks. It was just that amount. It wasn't a.
Right.
If I tried to think, well, this is just, I was counting down the sessions. Um, and at the end of it, I was just really relieved, to be honest with
Right.
you. And it was I think, well, like I mentioned when I chat to you before, you have bad days, and obviously there's, it is in the back of your mind. It does it. Are you going to be okay? And
Sure.
you do have that in the back of your mind. And then I think I told you one day, this one of the nurses, Alba, had a Hakuna Matata tattooed on her arm, and and she showed me that. I went, Clive, no worries. And
Uh-huh.
that's so I've kept that. And I said to you before, when I had my last session, as I walked out, I sang Hakuna Matata, and we all were in the control room, and
Yeah.
give each other a hug, and then I've had the tattoo done on my arm, and that's my motto.
Right.
No worries for the
So,
rest of my life.
after you've had this treatment, and you said that towards the end of it, it was starting to get, a bit more demanding. What happens after the treatment is finished, Clive?
Well, see, what runs alongside this is you have a hormone injection because one of the feeders of cancer is testosterone, so they have to reduce that. So you have to have I have got to have hormone injections every 6 months now till February 24.
Okay.
Now the side effects for that are basically you are chemically a woman.
Right. Okay.
So you experience basically what a woman experiences on a menopause or time of the month. You have mood swings, you have hot flushes, you have irritability, and I
Right.
know a lot of men won't like this, but personally, I think every guy should go on hormones tablets for 2 weeks because it would have made my life so much easier because I completely understand now what it's
Right.
like to be a woman.
Right. So,
Because there's days I used to walk in and just go, Debbie, I don't know what's wrong, and I start breaking down and cry. And then
uh,
other days I'd be sitting there and everybody being lovely to me and really nice. And all I wanted to do was kill them, you
right.
know.
So you were having like
Oh, it's like, that was my wife and my daughter said, now you know what we go through. And I
having
said, yeah,
like
I do. I'm pretty
menopause or premenstrual syndrome. Yeah.
yeah, absolutely. And it's the weirdest feeling, but it does, the side effects are, from a man's point of view, which probably, loss of libido, impotency and all that sort of stuff, but it's only temporary. So it's
Right.
just, once again, I'm looking at everything. I'm alive. I'm grateful, extremely grateful. That's one thing it has taught me. It's taught me to be grateful for everything I've got and on my family.
Right.
Uh, and this is just a small speck in my life that I have to go through. And it's not a lesson I would have wanted, but I've
Right.
learned from.
Yeah, you mentioned earlier Positively Blue to put people
Yeah,
in the picture of what this is or was. There was an organization set up initially called Positively Pink, and it was
yeah,
actually to encourage and support women in getting scans for breast cancer. Yeah.
correct. Yeah, yeah,
And then someone had, I think, the very good idea of saying, well, let's do something similar for the men. And they called it
yeah.
Positively Blue. And was this one of the vouchers that you got?
Yes,
Right.
yes. Bill, I went to a dinner there. I went to a Positively Blue dinner at Oceana, and I remember sitting there, and this guy got up, and it was all for positive. The guy got told a story, and about having the voucher, getting tested, and going through all the process what I've just talked about.
Right.
And I actually remember sitting there thinking, what has this got to do with me?
Uh-huh.
But then fast forward a couple of years, I am that person standing up.
Right.
And you know, I can't. It's just not just a big shock, and you just don't realise it's coming, and and I learned a big lesson. So
Yeah.
and Positively Blue obviously is gone now, so that's the why we're trying to do the event that we're doing tomorrow to take the void and hopefully
Yeah.
keep that going.
So tell us about the event, Clive.
I don't,
You've really set yourself up here, haven't you?
yeah, I have. I have. I don't know. I mean, after when we was going through it, I said, and I knew Positively Blue was stopping.
Uh-huh.
I was talking to my two sons, Luke and Bradley, and I said, look, I want to do something. I want to do something. I want to try and keep this going. I want to try and raise money to get a voucher like I got and give that to other guys, so they can they don't have to go, don't die, basically,
Yeah.
that they can get tested and check they're all right and make people aware of it, because it opened my eyes. So we came up with this crazy idea of doing a sprint mini triathlon where we're swimming 800 meters in Capopino. We're running from Luna Beach to El Bombo Beach in La Cala, which is
Right.
5K, and then we're picking up bikes there and running and riding 9 kilometers, out the back of La Cala, up past Macadona and up to Hippodrome, and then past the cemetery, and we're finishing in the Castle Car Park, Riverside,
Yeah.
um, tomorrow, and then that's all tomorrow. So that we kick off at.
I'm awfully glad you didn't say you were finishing up in the cemetery.
Well, I tell you, I'll be saying thank you when I go by there. That's for sure.
Yeah. So have you
Well,
got?
it's great. This. I mean, it started off with 22 people, and I probably could have got more, but I had to put a cap on it because it's the logistics of. I mean, I've had some fantastic support. I mean, I've had the bikes, majority of the bikes given to me by Tyrrell Bike Shop in Frangarola.
Right.
I've had the running gear that I've got on, all sponsored by or by Aquapool Spas,
Uh-huh.
and all the printing done for free by Creative Marbella. Diving, the wetsuits are done by Diving by Nick, and
Uh-huh.
people have been fantastic, and then we're going back to have a bit of a bash afterwards at an Irish bar in Los Chapas, Merce bar,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
that'd be great.
Yeah. So have you got a lot of sponsorship to raise money? Has it
Well,
been
yeah,
going well?
I mean, we had a meeting last night with majority of the people. Some are coming over from the UK to do it, which is fantastic. And I can't thank the people enough who are getting involved to actually to put themselves through this and support me. And I just can't thank them enough. Yeah. So and looking at talking to people, they seem to we should do all right out of it. And on top of that, the Lacala Lions have got involved, and
Right.
they've pledged €1,800, which you basically give 100 men tests.
Right.
So
Yeah.
yeah,
S-
so that's great, And so and what I'm planning to do is I'm not just going to give out the vouchers willy nilly because they might end up in a drawer or in the bin. I'm
Yeah.
actually going to start doing drop-in days. I don't know. I've got to organise it, but it might be the first Saturday every month.
Okay.
So the TRE and yourselves and Global are all going to blast it, and
Uh-huh.
and I'll do everything I can with my friends and family through social media to get as many people as we can. So I can guarantee that the tests are going to be used. So that's it.
Yeah, and you've got your mini triathlon is going to be going live on Facebook tomorrow, yeah?
What about live? I mean, we've got somebody. I've got an event thing, and I think my son told me I set it up wrong.
All right, okay.
So it's I've got a friend who's does TV work, and he's doing a full video of the whole day with interviews and everything. So
Fantastic.
once it's done, I'm going to pop it out and share it, and
Right.
all the guys that have been involved in it can keep it and have a memory of them experiencing pain.
Yeah, 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 yeah. Um, oh yeah, sorry, I'm just getting a message from Dave there. We'll catch up with that one. So,
That's all right.
Clive, I think what you're doing is a very it's a very positive thing, not just positively blue. It's a very positive thing, and so this message is going out to men who are listening,
Yeah,
and it's also going out to their wives, their partners, their lovers, or
absolutely.
whoever the people are that twist arms and sort of persuade them. Yeah.
Uh, my message is: don't be a man. Get your prostate checked. And that's what I'm calling is the whole thing I'm doing is don't be a man and and try and be a man. Go and get tested.
Yeah, yeah,
That's the message.
yeah. So do you think you might go global with this, Clive?
Not about global. I mean, I've got a couple of other events I'm going to do this year. I'm doing a pig roast and hopefully a gala dinner later in the year, and I've got the plans for something different in
Yeah,
October 24. But I want to do this again next year, maybe a bit bigger and get a lot more people involved and raise a lot more money. And
yeah,
that's the plan. I mean, I kind
yeah,
of did it where it was just my sons, and then it's just grown to a few people,
yeah.
and hopefully we will raise some money to help people.
Yeah, and the you said the Lions have the Lions Club of La Cala
Yeah,
is an outstanding organisation, which had them on the radio show in the past,
yeah.
and they may well be able to help as well with getting the message out there for you.
Well, yeah. Well, Winston has said that they're going to have the vouchers in the store, and they're going to push it with men coming in the store and help as well. So
Yeah.
in the stores in La Cala, I don't know what else they've got, but yeah, they're behind it 100%, which is
Yeah,
good.
they've got events as well, and they've
Yeah,
got the diabetic support
yeah,
group, and they've got Alzheimer's support group, and
yeah.
they get together for a lot of different things. Yeah,
Yeah. So
yeah,
yeah, I was just chuffed. I mean, that was purely by chance. I went to a dinner of theirs for children's cancer and sat
right.
next to the ex-president. So yeah, I'm really chuffed. I'm really overwhelmed with everybody's
Yeah.
support. And thank
Fantastic.
you for giving me the opportunity to talk. I
Oh,
really
you're
appreciate
very
it.
welcome. If people want to check up on what's happening, if they go onto Facebook and
Yeah,
look up "Get Your Prostate Checked," they'll see
yeah.
the events, won't they? That's
Well, if
coming
they
up
just
tomorrow.
look for me, Clive Marks. It's all. Yeah, you have all the things that I've done, the videos that I've done, and what's going on, um, and you can actually hopefully learn a little bit. And anyway,
Sure. Clive,
I'm trying my best.
thank you so much for joining me today. I'm going to be catching up with you tomorrow after your mini triathlon,
Yeah, I look forward
and
to it.
I wish you all the very best. I think this
Thank
has
you.
been really valuable and helpful information. We're not giving medical advice here. We're just sharing your experience. Thank you so
Absolutely.
much for joining us
Right.
today, Clive. For everyone
Thank
who's
you.
been listening, have a fantastic weekend, and we'll be back next Friday. Take care, everyone.